Same story. Except this time, at least, the power play went 2 for 3. So that's a silver lining. Comment section is red hot, so I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's dive right in and discuss another loss for the Minnesota Wilds.
You are Locked On Wild POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 5-3 to the Edmonton Oilers here this evening, and let's just dive right in to another just a game that got away, and it's just same old story that we've seen from the Minnesota Wild here over the last now month plus. Hard to really expect a ton when you're playing 5 third-pairing defensemen and are expecting that they're going to be able to hold the fort down. Goalie play has fallen off. Offense was fine tonight. Calvin Pickard had some good saves to prevent some key looks for the Wild. But, the defense being as good as it was early on in the season, I guess I'm not shocked that it has fallen off, considering that Brodin, Spurgeon, and Faber are out of the lineup. But enough from me. Let's go to Amanda. I don't understand how you end up on top of our goalie and not get a penalty. I guess the only thing that I will say is that the refs were pretty convinced that it happened after the play, and thus didn't warrant any sort of discipline. So they also Connor McDavid's going to get a fine for the elbow. There's not going to be any other discipline beyond that. He'll get a fine for that. We'll see if Marcus Johansson does anything or is able to come back. He left the game after that elbow to the face. Not surprised. My guess is it's probably a concussion, but we'll see if he's out for a while. I don't really know. I don't really know what else to say about those plays because, like, the broadcast was discussing it during the game, saying that it should have been a penalty on McDavid, but it is also Connor McDavid. And as Wayne Gretzky said, going into the intermission, he's taken enough of those that it's probably okay that he gives out a couple himself. So that's one part of it. We'll get to the other half because a lot of people calling the team soft in the comments here tonight. So we'll discuss that as well as we get to it. Chisholm is so bad defensively. We need to get rid of him very soon. The last 4 games has really shown it. Well, gee, what happened over the last 4 games that could have possibly exploited that? Can't quite put my finger on it. Jared Spurgeon wouldn't be that wouldn't play a role. Jonas Brodin being out wouldn't play a role. Brock Faber being out wouldn't play a role. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what would cause a third pairing guy elevated to a top or a second pairing role playing with a 7th defenseman. I don't know what sort of effect that would have on a player's play when it's pretty clear that a defenseman of the calendar of Jonas Brodin or Jared Spurgeon can help out and take some of the defensive responsibilities. But no, that doesn't play a role at all. Yes, we're missing people, but starting to think the coach has lost the room. I disagree, but I'm not going to people are entitled to their own opinions on what they see because everybody watches the games. I'm not the only one that watches. And it's a Wild team that continues to battle, but they just are limited with what they have and limited with what is out of the lineup. They are financially constrained because of where they were at before the season started. They're financially constrained because of what is currently out of the lineup. They can't just call people up at will to take these spots. They're still operating within the salary cap. And at some point, you just run out of cards to play with what you have. You can't go to the blackjack table with $2 and expect that you're going to be able to play with the big dogs. That's just how it works at this point. And until some of those cards come back into the deck, this is what you're going to get. It is just, it's kind of amazing to me that we look at what is out of this lineup and people from fans from other teams say, oh, suck it up. You guys aren't nearly as injured as we are. Or, Kaprizov doesn't make that much of a difference. Or, frankly, I don't know how the Minnesota Wild have done it to this point in the season. I fully expect that they're going to fall out of the playoffs by the time the second half is finished. They look like real pretenders to me. Like, are we forgetting what this team did to start the season? And not just a 10-game stretch either. Like, everybody just relax. Point equity. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Point equity by the first 30 games of the season have allowed you the opportunity to operate within a stretch where you're probably not going to play at that same level. And the fact that we're doing it without a Hart Trophy candidate and 3 of the top 3 defensemen on the team, it's not going to look pretty. You take the wins you can get, but I'm sorry, you have to have a lot go right for you to take on Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl with 5 third-pairing defensemen and a 7th defenseman and just cross your fingers and say, well, we just hope that maybe they have an off night. That's never going to happen. Crossing fingers that Mojo will bounce back. National talking heads really talk up the Oilers. Well, if Kaprizov would have played, maybe there would have been a little more national steam on the Minnesota Wild, but they have a job to do too. They have a job to do to try to make the broadcast entertaining and to talk up the Stars. And Kaprizov not being out there, that limits certainly what the national broadcast can talk about during the course of a game. Honestly, the boys looked fairly good out there tonight. Picard definitely kept the Oilers up in the third period. Unfortunately, I had the money puck, but I got to refresh it here because I had it up during the third period. The Minnesota Wild generated 2.74 expected goals. Edmonton generated 3, just over 3. So offensively, this game was pretty even. Filip Gustavsson did not have a great night. He was 1.99 goals saved below expected. And Calvin Pickard being slightly better than that at negative 0.26 goals saved below expected. That made the difference. He saved a couple of point-blank looks, especially early on in the game, too. A couple of Rossi looks, there were a couple of other looks, too. He made the key saves that were needed, and Filip Gustavsson didn't. Filip Gustafsson's allowed 19 goals in his last 4 games. Again, I think that certainly factors into the fact that he's operating with 5 third-pairing defensemen and a 7th defenseman, all playing in the lineup and playing huge minutes. I mean, what was the minute disparity tonight? Zach Bogosian played 21 minutes. Declan Chisholm played 26. Travis Dermott and David Juracek played 10 each. John Merrill played 21. Jake Middleton played 23. It's too many minutes for Chisholm. And you're playing him with, I don't know what the pairings were heading into this game, but a top four of Bogosian, Chisholm, Merrill, Middleton compared to a top four of Brodeen, Faber, Spurgeon, Middleton is just leagues different. Leagues different. And you may not feel it in a game where you are taking on a team that just doesn't have the horses, doesn't have the firepower that a team like the Edmonton Oilers does. But in games against teams like this, you absolutely are going to feel it because they're just that good. The game against San Jose, yeah, you're not going to feel it there because San Jose is just still just insanely young. And they're not a great team. But you play Vegas, you play Edmonton, and look, at some point it just becomes excuses, but it's the reality of the situation. It's the reality of what is currently going on with this team. Is there just is a ceiling at some point. First period, Boldy was very elite. Yes, he was. Nearly had a couple of goals tonight. Ended with 7 total shots. He played 26 minutes, 55 seconds in this one. Him and Rossi and Zuccarello were really clicking nicely in this game. It just couldn't sustain it. That's what it was. They just couldn't sustain it. They couldn't match what the Oilers are doing offensively. And getting into that type of a track meet type game with the Edmonton Oilers is just always asking for a bad time. And, well, guess what? The Wild had a bad time tonight. I miss the 80s and 90s hockey, as McDavid would have not gotten away with that and would have had to pay for that chicken wing. So here's the reality of the situation with that. If you retaliate, getting Connor McDavid to try to answer for that hit by fighting is just never going to happen because any other player on that Oilers team will step up to defuse. So he's not going to have to answer for it that way. And if you go at him directly, you're going to get suspended. And or take a penalty and put the Edmonton Oilers on the power play. If the Minnesota Wild penalty kill wasn't in the bottom 5 in the league, I'd say go for it. Do it. Absolutely. But they're a bottom 5 unit. And so you try to answer in an aggressive way, and you're going to pay for it. Again. So that's just that is, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. There are teams that operate like that where they try to get that competitive edge. There are teams that try to be above that. And the Minnesota Wild just, in those instances, they try to make teams pay by beating them in the game and by being the more level head. In those instances. Again, whether it's right or it's wrong, that's just the situation. You cannot break up Boldy, Rossi, Zuccarello when Kaprizov comes back. It's going to be interesting to see what John Hines does with the lines. I think he will very much oh, cool. Michael Russo tweet just now. Eriksson Ek didn't see the Johansson-McDavid collision on the ice. He asked the ref what happened, and the ref says the ref told him Johansson took his own stick to the face. Okay, is this is this real? Eriksson Ek didn't see the Johansson McDavid collision on the ice. He asked the ref what happened, and he says the ref told him Johansson took his own stick to the face. Last I checked, elbows and sticks are pretty polar opposites in terms of appearance. Well, that's fun. In that case, I guess then yeah, run him. I don't care. Run him. I don't give a bleep. Hopefully, when everybody's healthy again, they don't keep Chisholm in the lineup. So you'd rather have John Merrill in the lineup over Declan Chisholm? FNG 97. How was that run on the goalie not a penalty? I think I already got into that. Call up Liam Ogren. I'll get to that in a second here. Rossi was very good today. Yes, he was. It was one of the bright spots. How about a stick tap for Ryan Hartman tonight too? It appears as though Ryan Hartman has started to get his scoring touch back at a desperately needed time. So great work for Hartman here tonight. Between Boldy, Rossi, Zuccarello, and I'll say Hartman. I'll throw Eriksson Ek in there too because he was 10 out of 15 in the face-off circle. Those are the bright spots here tonight, but beyond that, there weren't a ton. The Boldy, Rossi, Zuccarello line is so terrible defensively, give up a lot of goals. I say tough loss, but we need our injured players back. Yes, a couple of players are not good. Disappointed that McDavid didn't get a comeuppance by someone on our team. Well, I guess in that instance, if the officials just thought it was a stick to the face, an own stick, I don't know. That irks me. That tweet irks me that the officials are like, oh no, he just took his own stick to the face. Yeah, this is a problem too. Immediately giving up a goal. Immediately giving up a goal after you score is debilitating. Just got to go 500 till the break, get healthy, and everything will be fine. This is all I'm saying. The Minnesota Wild are like 10th in the league right now in points over the last month plus. You like what do people want? What do people want them to do until they get some of these guys back? Clearly keep Chisholm out of the lineup. Gus is stopping everything he can. It's kind of hard when Chisholm is preying on his downfall. Boy, I can't wait to read further down in the comment section for some of those. Mojo is a flopper. Wow, he should win an Oscar. Mojo can't even act like a competent hockey player. Yeah, he's definitely not flopping on there. See, this is the thing too on the Nurse goal. If he doesn't score, it is a penalty. If he scores, nothing. Maybe needs to be looked at as a rule change. Goal is good, but still a power play. Yeah, it might be something that they look at after the season is done, but they're not gonna do much. They're not gonna do much with it right now. Disagree with the coach losing the room. The Wild actually did really good with what they have had to work with. If anything, I think If anything, I think John Hines has done a good job of keeping everybody together considering the circumstances. How about that for a spin? How about that for a spin zone on the losing the room notion? Sure need Brock, Spurgeon, Brodeen back ASAP. You are absolutely right, Nathan. Absolutely right. We have half an AHL roster playing right now, and we're expecting to hang with the top of the NHL fully healthy. 7-3 in the last 10. We've been overperforming for sure. Frankly, at this point in the season, I'm just happy with wins right now. Hoping now, if everybody comes back and this continues, then yeah, I'm going to ratchet up the frustration level. But I just at this point, have set my expectations like as low as possible. You're not going to beat Edmonton without Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup. You're just not. You're going to maybe beat him 1 out of 10, maybe. That's just how this works. Hines seems to be squeezing everything out of these guys, but the D line will be exploited. Not really sure how to fix that. Missing a right-handed D really showed tonight. Yeah. I will, like I said, once people come back, if we are able to, if we're able to get most of these things ironed out, then I think we're going to go back to where things were. But like so many people, especially on a more national level, so many people just read the box score and they're like, oh, looks like the Minnesota Wild are finally falling to where we thought they'd be at the beginning of the season. It's like, do even remote level of skimming the surface. Like just get a little bit of context as to what's going on. It's a Vikings hangover causing this hypercriticism. It's a state that is beyond cursed. Maybe I'll do a show on that at some point, but it's a state that's beyond cursed somehow. I don't know what it is. I don't know who caused it. I don't know who put a voodoo doll in some cubby in a press box somewhere. I don't know what's going on, but it's a tangible thing. We are a tough team to play and can be great, but we can't expect to go from a non-playoff team to win a cup. The team is making huge strides quickly. John Hines put a good base together. It is a team that has to limit opposing chances in order to keep it at their level to win. And when they don't do that, it's just the gravity of the situation. What was the other point I was going to make? I can't remember. It'll come to me. Can't have Merrill and Bogo playing the minutes that they are. No, you can't. You can't. Been listening to your podcast on Spotify lately. Keep up the good work. Hey, we appreciate having you along. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you stick with us here as the rest of the season rolls along, and as we guide you beyond the season into the off season and into next year too. I'm not planning on going anywhere anytime soon, so hopefully we just keep building this. The game was okay given the circumstances. With a little bit more luck, the Wild could have won it too. If Picard doesn't make one of those saves, one or two of those point blank looks, because I think I want to see what the Minnesota Wild did in terms of where the attempts came from. So they had 48 unblocked shot attempts. They had 7 medium danger and 3 high danger. I'm good with that. 10 out of 48, so about 20% of your shots coming from medium and in. I think they did a good job of attacking Picard tonight. He just made a couple of those key saves that led to the Oilers being able to seal the win. We played so well tonight, we brought out Dirty McDavid. See? They needed to do that. Marcus Johansson was giving the Oilers so many fits that they had to take him out. Jesse Pierce with an update. Johansson will be out with an upper body injury, according to Hines. I would guess, since he took an elbow to the face, that it's probably a concussion. Hines is feisty in the postgame, apparently. Jesse said that he's, quote, visibly pissed off. He said, I don't even want to go down that road because it would probably infuriate you more than it infuriates me right now. So I'm just going to bypass that. He evidently, at the timeout after that happened, he was letting them have it. He was letting the officials have it a little bit. You don't see it a lot from John Hines, but when he feels like something has gone uncalled, he lets it rip. I've seen it. I've seen it from the press box. I have seen him turn red. And I would not want to be on the receiving end of that. Let me just say. Can we give some love to Merrill? He seemed like he was stepping into the role he needed to play. I just think I think again, we've talked about this when I think we talked about this when Spurgeon went out, before Brodin went out. It is you can fill one or two key injuries. It's when you have like two or more that that becomes a problem and the depth gets tested. And I think for the most part, these guys have played well so far this season in the roles they've been asked to fill. Obviously, there are off games. Again, you're operating under a very limited amount of cap space due to injuries and otherwise. At some point, you just kind of hit your ceiling. The decor is two guys we claimed on waivers and a guy who has been in between the AHL and the NHL all year. At least three forwards who should arguably have time in the AHL. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. So running the goalie, getting a chicken wing to another forward from McDavid, in which if we did that, they'd be shot. But otherwise, a good game. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what in that situation you don't look good either way. Because if you retaliate, you get a penalty. Depending on the level of retaliation, you probably get a fine or a suspension. I don't know. There's no good answer. It's a heat of the moment play. Maybe if you can get somebody to fight immediately after there, but we've seen this happen to the Wild before. The play against, who was it? I think it was LaRue. No, was it? I think it was LaRue. Like 3 different Wild players tried to fight him, and he just refused. Sometimes you deal with those types of people, and that's on them. That's on them. Person said how McDavid was not sent off for a blow to the head. That kind of surprised me too. But again, if the officials think that Marcus Johansson hit himself in the face with his stick, I'm watching the replay right now. Oh my God. His stick, ladies and gentlemen, I should just play this for you. If I face discipline from the NHL, then so be it. But just look at this. This is going to absolutely drive you batty. Now, actually, I think I'm going to get in trouble if I play it. And I don't want to get demonetized because the NHL has been cracking down on accounts using NHL highlights. But Marcus Johansson's stick doesn't leave the ground. It doesn't leave the ground. So the fact that they're like, oh yeah, his stick jumped up and hit him in the face. I don't know. That is preposterous with me. I guess I would imagine that Liam Ogren will get the call if Johansson misses time. Depends on if he's going to be put on IR or if he's going to be just on the bench for a few games. The Wild can really not afford to have that happen unless somebody like Kirill Kaprizov comes back. Good old... Oops, that's not the one I was looking for. Good old Chris Lee for you. I'm not up on my good officials, bad officials. I know Steve Pizzari was a bad one for a while. But beyond that, I am gathering, I guess, now that okay, here's Russo. Then I'll finish my thought. Hines made it sound like Johansson's going to be out with an upper body injury. Kaprizov and Lauko may be close to returning. Lauko's on LTIR, so there's some cap stuff to navigate unless Faber's about to return. Lauko's on LTIR is how they're affording to keep Juracek up. Oh, my God, the cap gymnastics. So, yeah, there's going to be some roster maneuvering before the game against Nashville on Saturday, to say the least. Think any of the guys will be back for Colorado on Monday? I had predicted this week that I think Kaprizov makes his return. I said Saturday. Honestly, I'd be fine with him returning for either one of those games. Just as long as we get him back at some point during one of those two, preferably before Colorado, but it'd be nice to have him get a game before Colorado. As far as the others go, they're all close. It'd be nice. It'd be nice if they would get some back. At some point here. Was shocked that they were starting Gus when his trouble started in the game against the Blues. Then he carried over his bad game to Colorado, which was not all his fault. Then he gave Gus a break. I see there are two sides. There are two sides of the thought process there. Is by continuing to play a guy, you kind of force him to work his way through it, and you allow him to play himself out of it. And I think John Hines still has full confidence in Filip Gustavsson being able to get himself back on track. He has so far this season. So he's allowed in the last 1, 2, 3, 4. He's allowed 4 or more goals in the last 4 starts. Before that, he had done it 1, 2, 3, 4 total times. So it's a rough patch for sure. But let's also keep in mind the game he had against the Carolina Hurricanes, who until they fell apart were a very tricky team to play, especially at home. Goalie play is weird. Goalie play is very volatile, and what's going on now? Goalie play is weird. The league average save percentage has dropped every year over the last 6 or 7 consecutive years. The league just favors offense. And every goalie, with the exception of Connor Hellebuck, although he has lost 8 games, every goalie goes through it at different points. Your team could have beaten us by huge numbers if it weren't from picks. Once we were down 2-0, I didn't think my Oilers would come back and beat you. I also knew you would score 3 on picks. Well, thanks for joining us here. Thanks for joining us before the Oilers stream got going. Always appreciate the other perspective across the aisle, as long as it's done in a way that doesn't derail the show. So appreciate it. Really getting concerned about Brodin and Spurgeon always being hurt the last couple of years. I get it, but also let's keep in mind that the nature of these injuries is not, they're not chronic injuries. Yes, as these guys are getting older, they tend to break down. Oh, is that guy still in here? Oh, he's dropping a like. Well, we thank you for that. I get it, Ron. As those two get older, obviously they break down a little bit, but it'd be one thing if it was calf injuries, strains, sprains, that sort of thing. These injuries, from what we gather for Brodin and Spurgeon, are far from it. These are not little chronic nagging injuries. These are legitimate things. And if the play was starting to drop off, I'd be more concerned. But let's not forget that Spurgeon and Brodin looked like as good as they have looked at any point for the last few years for a while there. That's just the way the game goes sometimes, is you just, sometimes you're on the right side of the injury bug, and sometimes you are not. So happy to hear that Spurgeon. Yeah, Spurgeon is ramped up pretty good. I would hope that he is able to return here sometime within the next week, but I'm not going to speculate much on returns for injuries, because it just seems like we don't really hear the full story. Blaming these injuries and the Vikings loss on Julius Randle, by the way, I fully support that. Fully support that. Thank you, Anita. People need to manage their expectations. The sky is not falling. It's a skid. It's a squall. If we were using an ocean term, we're navigating a squall. There are choppy waters, and a bunch of the crew got sick. Do you have enough people still to keep the boat afloat until you get through the storm and everybody else is ready to return to full health and guide the ship to prominence? That's the analogy. That was actually pretty good. So that's what it is. Like, you'll know. Trust me. If there's a situation where, we did this a lot last year. If there's a situation where I feel like the team has started to kind of unravel, you'll know. I don't get that sense yet. I don't get the sense that this team is collapsing. that John Hines is losing the room. I don't get any sense of any of those types of things. It is harder for this team to win at the level that they were because of the players that are out, but the effort is still there, and they're fighting up until the end as much as they can. And I think right now they are, 5 points behind Winnipeg. I think his last count. John Hines has them still battling. So, frankly, I kind of find the thought that he has lost the room a little preposterous. That's just me. But if I get the sense that something like that is happening, you'll know. Any other questions here? I know there was some Liam Ogren talk earlier in the stream. It sounds like he's got a couple of goals tonight. And the Wild don't play again until Saturday, so a couple of days off. I would imagine they will head to Nashville on Friday. So they get an opportunity to just practice. That's the thing that they're doing more this year than they ever did at any point last year, is actually practicing. So that's nice. Yeah, they get a chance. They'll get a chance to regroup and try to get at it. I want to say too. I want to say too something that John Hines said really kind of stood out to me before the game tonight. He said in the pregame, he said when the last matchup against the Oilers happened, at that point you flush it. It was obviously a bad game. He said, but we did come back to it and look at it from a team perspective of the things that we needed to do differently. And as far as how to handle Edmonton, we didn't focus on them as much as we did on what we need to do. I like that. I like, realizing that when bad games happen, you just kind of put them out of your mind, but make sure that you learn an important lesson from them. And that's been a common theme for John Hines throughout his tenure, is just making sure that we're getting good detail work and just continue to battle and continue to try to do the little things to impact the game. It's not always going to work. But more often than not, if you battle and you compete, you'll be in it up until the end. So, I don't know. I don't think you did, Kaylee. I don't think I saw that chart. That would be very interesting, though, to see. Because there feels like there have been just a ton of them. 9 points for bottom wild card. I'm assuming this means 9 points out of the final wild card and that says tough. A tough remaining schedule coming up. So FNG 97, are you advocating for the Wild to fall out of the postseason? I'll wait. Oh, you're saying they will. Okay. Well, I've had about enough of that. So enjoy, and we'll catch you never. All right, I'm going to bed. I think that's enough for tonight. Wild lose 5-3. Again, I'm not surprised, I guess, considering what this team is currently dealing with. And I guess we'll just see how things play out. And as we continue to get players back, then and we'll see how things go. But beyond that, I don't know. Like, miss me with the losing the locker room. Season's gonna fall apart. Gonna miss the playoffs. Can we just be adults? Like, you don't have to jump every time adversity strikes. The Wild, this is the third time all season or fourth that the Wild have lost multiple games in a row, and we're over halfway into the season. I mean, go play NHL 2K whatever and have your team go 82-0 if it's that easy. All right, I'm going to bed. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll have an episode for you probably after lunch tomorrow. I know we like to try to push to get the episodes out as early as possible, but honestly, with as many injuries as are happening, it just makes sense to wait until after practice has happened to just to see where everybody's at. Because then, with my luck, I get one done early, and then there's an update, and then I maybe don't have time to do an update later. So we'll have an update for you sometime after lunch, and appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate everybody that didn't try to derail the stream tonight, joining us. All the OGs, all the everydayers. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night. Minnesota Wild fall tonight, but they'll be back at it on Saturday as the Wild take on the Nashville Predators on the road. Until then, we'll have a new episode for you coming up tomorrow right here on Locked on Wild.